This is the King Chasing Podcast. Here's your host, Richard Martin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the King Chasing Podcast as we are wrapping up our summer series on mission trips. We have just a few episodes left as summer starts to fade away. Athletics begin again at our NCCAA member schools. Once again, thank you for tuning in to the King Chasing Podcast. You can find past episodes of the King Chasing Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the NCCAA YouTube channel, and of course at the nccaa.org/podcast. Today we are joined by a trio of guests, but from two different institutions, as we are joined by Sydney Anderson from Pensacola Christian College and Jennika Beach and Kaitlin Rahn, who are from Emmaus University. All three of our guests on today's podcast play volleyball at their respective institutions, and all three took trips to Guatemala with Dare for More Ministries. During their time in Guatemala, the three athletes were all part of volleyball camps for children in the area, prayed for women and children in the safehouses in the area, and did home visits to those who live in Antigua, Guatemala. During their time in Guatemala, the three athletes were all part of volleyball camps for children in the area, prayed for women and children in the safehouses in the area, and did home visits to those who live in Antigua, Guatemala. Thank you so much for tuning in, and now we'll turn it over to Jennika, Kaitlin, and Sydney as we dive into this episode of the King Chasing Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the King Chasing Podcast. So glad that you could be here with us today as we have a trio of guests who both went on the same trip but different times to Guatemala. We first have Kaitlin Rahn and Jennika Beach from Emmaus University and Sydney Anderson from Pensacola Christian College. All three are volleyball players at their respective schools. And guys, thank you so much for taking time. I know you're in the preseason, getting ready to start back a new year, but thank you for so much for taking time out of your schedules to come hop on the podcast today.
Of course, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Thank you.
And so we'll just jump in. So you both go to the same trip to Guatemala, and we'll start with Emmaus because you went first in a spring trip with your entire team. And Sydney, you went in the summer, but the same trip. Vicky Denny, who's an NCCAA Hall of Famer, helps with this trip as a Hall of Fame volleyball coach. Helps with this trip to Guatemala. And we'll start Jennika and Kaitlin. How did you both find out about this trip to Guatemala and decide, okay, we want to go on it?
Yeah, I can take this one. So we got informed by our head coach, Coach Hannah, and she was in communication with Coach Denny as she's gone on multiple trips with Dare for More down to Guatemala. Mm-hmm. And so Coach Hannah wanted to give this opportunity for us to go down into a different culture, different country, and see the way that the Lord is moving and working in this ministry and in a different country. And so we found out, I think, 2 years?
It's a year.
Yeah, a year before we went, and then started fundraising for all things, yeah.
And Sydney, yes, like with yours, you didn't really go with your full team, but how did you find out about this summer opportunity that was kind of with different athletes from different NCCAA schools?
So for me, it was because of Coach Denny. This past season, I got an award that was under her name. So because I received the award, she reached out to me right after, and we were in contact, and she told me about this trip and just kind of how different it is. It's not your typical missions trip. And whenever she told me about it, I was kind of nervous because I was going to be going like by myself. Like I invited my teammates to go, but a lot of them already had missions trips that they were going on this past May. So I ended up going. It was just me from Pensacola, and then a lot of Coach Denny's former athletes joined us as well that had graduated and had played for her in years past. So I found out just because of Coach Denny. And just her heart to serve there was really cool to see. And because of her influence and her ministry, it opened up doors for her to be able to invite me and also just lots of other athletes that she's come into contact with. So, yeah.
So awesome. And so probably the same answer mostly to this question, but we'll start with you, Sydney, and then Kayla, Jennika, y'all can follow up. But what are some of the ways y'all are able to serve in Guatemala during your time there?
Um, so for our trip, I know we got to go to the market a couple of times and just buy lots of food items and things that we can take to a lot of families that were on the outskirts of the main part of town. It was a lot more run down, a lot harder to get to. So we bought a lot of like food baskets and different things that we can just take to them just to be a blessing. And then we also got to pray with those families afterwards as well. And that was just so cool to be able to do, just to be able to put a hand of blessing over them and just tell them that Jesus loves you even when you feel like so far away from everything and you're struggling, like the Lord sees you and he knows you and he loves you, and getting to bless them with a lot of food items that they need because a lot of them can't even get to the cities on their own. So us getting to be a blessing and give them that food was just great to see. And a lot of them would just start crying because they're just so grateful. And that was something cool for me to see as well, because I think there's so many times that we're not grateful for the smallest thing. So that was one thing we got to do. And then something else we got to do was host a volleyball clinic at a private school that was a little bit, probably like an hour away from where we were staying. And we just got to teach these girls about volleyball, but we also got to share our testimonies with them and just talk to them about what the Lord's doing in our lives. And then we also got to hear from them about how the Lord was working in their hearts as well. So just getting to have that fellowship and being able to use volleyball as a way to reach these athletes and just get to encourage them in their walk with Christ was something that was really cool to see. So I would say those are probably the top two ways that we got to serve. So
similar to as Cindy was saying, we also did a volleyball clinic with some of the local girls at one of the schools in the area. Their gym had been getting repairs because of an earthquake that had happened in the area. So we were hosted at like a local community center, and we were able to teach them about the volleyball skills, and then also share our testimonies with them. And it was just so special. And one of the moments that stood out to me the most is one of the girls had stopped and talked to one of our teammates about how her story had like made her see that like when you have Jesus, you're not going to be alone, and that there's someone there, because she had just recently moved to the area and didn't really have anybody in her life that she felt comfortable going to. And she was just, her eyes were just open to just the mercy of the Lord and how much he loves and supports us. And so our teammate was able to pray with her. And it was just such a beautiful moment to see how God was able to use the sport of volleyball to glorify him. And then another way that we were able to serve is that there was a family who had been with Dare for More for a while and were actually able to move out of the safe house and be fine and be homed in a different place. And so we got to help them sweep and clean their windows and prepare the house for their family to move in. And it was just so beautiful to see the joy in that mom's eyes as she was readying her home in a place that she felt safe and she could bring her kids and know that they could be safe. And it was just such a blessing to be a part of that.
Awesome. So great to hear. And so, yeah, we'll go back to Kayla and Jennika. Like you said, you mentioned kind of some of it with the Dare to Move ministries. What were some of the more interesting or eye-opening things you saw on this mission trip?
For me, it was definitely when we went to the market and got our food baskets, similar to what Sydney was sharing. And we went into the homes of some families, and just listening to their stories and the hardships that they're going through, and just the way that they continue to depend on the Lord, and their eyes weren't fixed on themselves, but they were fixed on like their family or their friends that were having hardships, but they were fixed on the Lord and dependent on him to give them food for the next day, give them a safe place to live. And just the way that they were fully reliant on him was just very encouraging when I got back to the States.
Mm-hmm. What was eye-opening to me about the experience is when we went into the safe house, we got to meet all of the families that were there, and there was just so much joy and life in that house. And hearing the stories of what these women had gone through, like I had expected to walk in there and feel the hurt and feel the sorrow, but it was the exact opposite. The kids were laughing and playing games, and just there was so much joy, and just seeing how God can just really be there for them and really change their outlook on life, that they experienced such terrible things and still had so much joy for the Lord and so much joy for life, was just like, my life is so different compared to theirs, and they had so much more joy. And it was just something that I brought back with me, of the importance of being grateful and the importance of just being thankful for everything the Lord has done in my life and used all the experiences I've been through.
Awesome. Yeah, Sydney, like I said, you went later in the summer, a little bit different experience, but again, was something kind of interesting or eye-opening that you saw on your trip?
Yeah, definitely to second that. I also noticed just how joyful everyone was in the safe house, even though they had went through terrible things that nobody should ever have to go through. And yet I saw all smiles. There was not one sad face in that safe house. And that was just an encouragement to me to, even if it's just a simple smile on your face that you show to somebody else, like you can show the joy of the Lord in every situation of your life, because people are always watching you, and there's always somebody that you can influence for Christ in the right way. And then another thing that was difficult, I think, for me to see was just the amount of just different things that were going on in families that were just so hard on these moms and kids, and that because of these things, they had to literally be rescued and just be taken to the safe house, and just being taken from everything that they had known and loved, and having to just adjust and have to care for one another was just something that I thought was so sad, because like it's just so normalized over there, the things that they have to go through just to make money and just to survive and make a living is just something that people should never have to go through. So, and it just makes me grateful for where I've grown up, but it also gives me a burden for those people more. And like, I want to encourage anybody who's listening to this, like, go on a missions trip, and it's going to really just show you how truly blessed you are, and that you can serve in any capacity, even if that's just going on the trip and being a blessing to these people just by talking to them and giving them those food baskets, or just teaching them about the sport of volleyball. Like, God can use you in any situation that you're in, and he can use your talents and your abilities, and you can serve him there or wherever you're at. So those are some of the most eye-opening things for me.
And like I said, it kind of sounds like, I mean, the next question, God kind of taught you, all three of y'all, kind of just gratitude for your situation, just kind of, taught you how to find joy in the struggles. But we'll start with you, Sydney. What is just something that God kind of taught you, or how he showed up during this trip?
So I've gotten multiple opportunities just to serve at my college where I'm at. And the Lord has kind of put on, like, youth ministry has been on my heart for a while. I got to serve at Teen Extreme, which is a youth camp we have here that we host on our campus. And ever since the first time I did that, it really just opened my eyes to the opportunity that it could be to just be able to help young people take their next step for Christ. And I'm not perfect by any means, but the Lord got to use me to fulfill his perfect will by using imperfect people. And that was something that was really cool to see. And so I had known that I wanted to just serve youth in any capacity that I can. But after going on this trip, the Lord kind of opened my eyes to, like, I can mix this passion for serving young people and volleyball together by coaching one day. So the Lord has just kind of directed my steps in that way, and has showed me that I can trust him. And I know that I want to be a coach after I graduate this year. And the Lord will know the details. He's in all the details, but he's kind of showed me just to trust him with my next steps, and know that he's going to help me figure out where and when and how and all the things that go into that, as long as I just keep putting him first and keep seeking him, and he'll help me make those decisions. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Kayla and Jennika, same question. Just kind of, what did God teach you during this trip and how did he kind of show up on this trip for y'all?
For me, I really appreciated the devotional time that we had at breakfast as a team. And when she would share, and we walked through this book, and it went through 4 points of prayer and just the importance of prayer for like dreaming big, praying hard, thinking long, and jumping in. So you're dreaming big, you're not limiting God of like what he can or can't do, because we know he can do these great things. So thinking big of like, God, we know you can do this. Just like show us you can do this. And then praying hard. It's not just this one-time thing. It's night and day for years and years and years. And then that kind of goes into the think long. Like it's not going to happen instantly. It's going to take a process. It's going to take one step at a time, kind of inching towards your goal and your dream. And then jumping in, not being afraid to just leap and be like, Lord, like you got it. You're so in this, kind of what Sydney was talking about, of like, you're in this in every single moment. I know that you have me and like you have this control. So I'm just going to jump in and see what you can do because of me or in spite of me. Yeah.
I feel like I learned a lot about what service can look like. I know when we went, we were like, you expect for a mission trip to be serving hands-on all the time. And while this was a part of this mission trip, it was also a lot about connecting with people and praying for them and being there and supporting them. And Miss Lisa had made a really good point about that service is not about what makes you feel good and what you think people need, but it's really about the people that you're serving and what they need in that moment. And so it really just changed how I see service, that, it's not something to like, not like make me feel better, make me feel like I'm doing something to help, but it's really focusing on what they need in that moment and just fulfilling that need in whatever capacity you can through the Holy Spirit and through the Lord, and just really being able to open my eyes to what true service is and like what God is calling us to do in those situations.
Awesome. And so, like I said, got to go on both of y'all on this trip. Two different groups. Emmaus went as a team. Cindy, you kind of went by yourself from Pensacola. And Cindy, we'll start with you. Going into that, you go into with people you don't really know. You know of Coach Denny, of course, because you got the award that's named after her. And there are some former of her athletes from Bob Jones who you may have played against, whether they were a coach or a player. But other than that, you go in not really knowing anyone. But how did your team kind of grow together during this trip?
I actually ended up making like really good friends while I was there, and I think it was so cool just how the Lord just like brings people together for the right time, like for such a time as this. And it was just cool that if you decide to just serve the Lord together, like serving the Lord and having the Lord in the midst of just a fellowship of believers brings you closer together in itself, because you're serving the Lord every single day and you're getting to be a light together. And I made a lot of friends like on this trip. There was a former coach, a former assistant coach at Bob Jones and her husband. And there were a couple of other former Bob Jones players and some of the girls from Trinity College of Jacksonville. I ended up getting pretty close to some of them as well. And just getting to serve together is something that can bring you closer together, even if you didn't necessarily know them before. But now, like when I get to see some of the Trinity girls coming up, like we have that connection now, and we really just like bonded. So it's cool to see how the Lord can work even through complete strangers if you just trust him and allow him to do what he knows best. So.
And so, like I said, Emmaus, y'all went as a team. So you go from, you play together, you live together, you see each other most of the time. But how does this kind of help this out as you kind of help grow your team and grow the spirit of camaraderie together as you went on this trip together?
So it was definitely a different experience for all of us. One being out of the country, and two going like on a mission trip. It was my first one, and so being able to do it with my teammates, it just brought you closer together on a different level because you are going through something hard, something good, something challenging all together, and just being able to see each other like outside the court lines and outside of school, and just the way that their hearts want to serve the Lord. That was really the biggest connection that kind of brought us together, being able to cry together, being able to laugh together, and just serve the Lord in this different capacity that I haven't before. Uh, and that we are able to bring that back now, being back at school and starting preseason. We can still do this, like serving each other and checking in on each other, being intentional on and off the court, and continuing what we learned down in Guatemala, and bringing that back with us. Yeah.
Yeah, right before we left, our coach had found out some news and she was unable to join us on the trip. So that was initially a really scary feeling of like we had prepped for this for a year and now we're going down to a different country without an adult that we know really well. But we had 2 women from the Emmaus community come with us. And that was also just such a bonding experience, just being able to have more mentors in our life and come back and see them and be so excited when we get to see each other again and really grow the support that we have here. Because neither of us are from where our school is. So just having a family of believers here that love and support and hold you accountable is just such a blessing that we were able to, in that really difficult moment, find so much good in others that God put in our lives for that purpose.
And so looking at this trip, and Sydney, will start with you, how has this trip, you kind of mentioned it earlier about wanting to be a coach, serving on campus, but how has it kind of made you think about, as you get back onto campus, get ready for preseason, to ways you can serve not just your campus, but the community here back in the United States?
So to start, for just the people who are around me this year, we have new girls obviously on our team, and just like showing them how intentional like you can be with everything that you do is something I really want to emphasize with them. But I also get the opportunity to be a resident assistant this year, which is basically like a floor leader in your building for your dorm. And I'm getting to be able to mentor so many like young college women this year, and just really being able to just take them under my wing, especially like freshmen coming in, and being able to serve them just in any way that I can, and putting their needs above my own is something that I'm excited to be able to do. And I'm hoping that whenever we have like hall meetings and different things like that, just being able to share the love of Christ with them and tell them about my experiences and how the Lord can use you in any situation you're in if you allow him to, is something I'm really looking forward to doing. And then for just back home and other places, just being willing to serve in any way. And I know we mentioned this earlier about how service looks different. It depends on what those people need. It's not about making yourself feel better. It's about serving them in the way that they need. So when I go home and I'm back at my church, I can serve in so many different ways. I know my church is something that is growing all the time. Our church is very vibrant, and I'm looking forward to be able to just jump back in there, just being involved in everything that we do, because we have a lot of community outreach as well. So I can get involved there and just do door hangers or just be on tent team and tell people about Christ, and just use different opportunities that the Lord gives me, and points out that I need to serve in everything that I do. So I'm looking forward to be able to do that with resident assistant this year, and also going home afterwards to be able to get involved right away, even though I've been gone these past couple years with college, but just jumping right back in where I left it off. So
something that Emmaus does is we have a servant leadership program. So we are expected to get 30 hours of community service every semester, and it's been that way since we were freshmen. So as Sydney mentioned about serving and what it looks like in that capacity of that, it's about what the other person needs and not what you need. I feel like I'm going to take that into my SLT hours this semester, just as I serve the Emmaus community and the Dubuque community, just that I'm looking for what they're needing and how I can support them in the way that is best for what they're looking for, and just really grow myself and try to grow my community as well, and just bring people closer to the Lord and just really put him in the center of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I'm kind of on those similar lines of we've been doing it since freshman year, but it kind of changed my mindset of why I go into it, like the heart posture of when I go in to serve either in the church, in the community, or at Emmaus. Of just, it's not about me. It's not for my glory. It is for the Lord's glory and like other people's needs. And so I'm looking for the small moments of, oh, you need help with carrying something to you, and like let me take time and just help you, because like I might be running late, but like you need me in this moment. And so just like taking small sacrifices to help people, and just I go back to prayer because that's also a big thing that I learned. And just you don't have to wait for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner to pray. Like you can pray like before a test, or somebody shares something super hard with you. You're like, okay, let's just take it up to the Lord like right now. And just the way that we can communicate to the Lord, and just the peace that comes with prayer, and how that you can use that in serving with strangers or with people who already know the Lord, and just the witness that can be when you're serving anywhere.
Awesome. And so we'll have some of these links in the description. So Dare for More Ministries, of course, is a big way people can help out by getting to know more about them. But other than prayer, which of course is essential, what are other ways you think people can kind of help out people in Guatemala, or Dare for More, or just other ways they can help?
Dare for More, they have such an amazing program that they have been building. And a part of that is that they are training women about different skills that they can use so that they can earn money for their families rather than fall back into things that could hurt them. So they have a baking program where they're teaching women how to bake so that they can sell cakes and such on the street.
Oh, wow.
But then they also have a program for sewing where they create different bags and bracelets and pillowcases and so many things. And they have a website where you can purchase those things that those women have made. And so we got to go to a market when we were down there and see the things that the women had made. And we were even blessed to go to a graduation for somebody who had completed the sewing course. And so just seeing how proud they are of their work and how skilled they are, it would be a great blessing to their community if people wanted to support them in that way as well.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all so much for joining us on the podcast today and sharing about this trip to Guatemala, and just thank you for your hearts to serve.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you for tuning in to the King Chasing podcast as we continue this summer series on mission trips. For more information on Dare for More Ministries, visit dareformore.org or click on the link in the description. Also, if you are interested in going on a trip to Guatemala to participate with Dare for More Ministries, you can email Vicky Denny at vickydenny@gmail.com. That link is also in the description of this episode. The next trip will be in May 2027, so be sure to reach out now if you are interested in participating in the next trip. And of course, you can listen to past episodes of the King Chasing podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on the NCCAA YouTube channel, and at the nccaa.org/podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the King Chasing podcast.